The Temple of Angkor Wat is one of hundreds of temples that make up the Angkor World Heritage Site.
This is where stone meets sky, where the slow breathing of the jungle wraps itself around towers older than memory. In the heart of Cambodia, shapes of lotus and spire rise from a green ocean, their stories heavier than the stones that hold them.
Mysteries in stone. Cambodia's ancient temples stand against the weight of centuries.
For centuries, Angkor Wat has stood in silence, watching kingdoms crumble and forests return, holding its beauty in both shadow and light. It is a place of perfect lines and impossible questions.
Angkor was the largest settlement complex that had ever been built in all of human history before the Industrial Revolution.
Where the truth is never quite what it seems. And perhaps what we believe we know is only the beginning of something far stranger. The legend and the reality. The story most people hear begins like something from an adventure novel. A lone French explorer named Henri Mouhot, wandering the jungles of Cambodia in 1860, chasing a rare butterfly, stumbles upon a lost city swallowed by the forest. The scene is always the same. The vines part, and there it is, Angkor Wat, grand and forgotten, rising from the earth like a vision. It's a beautiful story, but it isn't true. When Mouhot arrived, Angkor Wat was no secret to those who lived nearby. Farmers and fishermen knew it well. Monks still prayed in its halls. The jungle had claimed much of it, yes, but the place had never truly vanished. Even Europeans had seen it before, almost 3 centuries earlier. In 1589, a Portuguese friar named Antonio da Madalena wrote of a temple like no other building in the world, filled with towers and decorations beyond description. His words faded quietly into obscurity, waiting for someone to stumble across them again. That someone was Mouhot. Inspired by tales of the region then known to Europeans only as Beyond India, he left his comfortable life and sailed from London to Bangkok in 1858. For 3 years, he traveled inland, by boat, ox cart, elephant, and on foot, recording plants, animals, people, and places. His arrival at Angkor Wat was no accident. Guides led him there, but the site still stopped him in his tracks. In his journals, he called it a rival to the greatest works of Greece, Rome, and even Solomon's temple. He marveled at the seamless stonework, the scale, the artistry. Mouhot would die of fever the next year, but his writings lit a spark. Archaeologists began to come, and with them, the first wave of questions Angkor Wat still hasn't fully answered. The immensity of Angkor Wat. From a distance, Angkor Wat looks like a dream made solid. A line of lotus bud towers floating above the trees, mirrored in the still water of its moat. But step closer, and the scale begins to reveal itself. The moat alone is nearly a mile long and 3/4 of a mile wide. A dark ribbon of water encircling an island of stone. Inside, the complex stretches over more than 400 acres, 3 times the size of Vatican City, larger than 300 football fields laid side by side. It is said that something like 10 million stone blocks make up the whole, each weighing up to 1.5 tons. They came from quarries 25 miles away, ferried along waterways, and dragged overland. In sheer volume, Angkor Wat contains more stone than the Great Pyramid of Giza. And unlike the pyramid, every surface here is carved. Every pillar, wall, and lintel alive with detail. The central temple rises like a mountain in the middle of a walled city. Its 5 towers, shaped like closed lotus buds, that climb to almost 200 feet. Galleries connect courtyards, terraces spill into staircases, long causeways stretch toward the gates. Everywhere you look, there is another corridor, another doorway, another sudden view. Yet for all its weight and size, Angkor Wat stands as if it were built to last forever. Part of that endurance comes from its design. The moat, for example, is not just defensive. It acts as a stabilizer, holding the soil in place against the outward pressure of the stone. In a land where the ground swells and shrinks with the seasons, the builders altered the water table beneath the complex so the foundation would float and shift without cracking. The official story says the Khmer Empire, at its height in the 12th century, built this as a temple to Vishnu under King Suryavarman II. It became the empire's spiritual and political heart. But looking at the sheer immensity of the place and the flawless way it has survived for 9 centuries, it's hard not to wonder, were they working from knowledge we no longer have? The impossible timeline. According to the accepted history, Angkor Wat rose from the jungle in just 37 years. That number is repeated in textbooks and documentaries, a testament, we're told, to the ambition and skill of the Khmer builders. But when you stop to measure the claim against the scale of the site, the math begins to strain belief. 10 million blocks of stone, some weigh more than a ton, quarried miles away, carved with precision, and transported without wheels or modern machinery. If work went on from sunrise to sunset every single day for 37 years, it would mean quarrying, moving, shaping, and placing 1 ton of stone every minute, without pause, for almost 4 decades. And yet, nowhere else in the Khmer Empire is there anything like Angkor Wat. Other temples exist, yes, but none match its size, complexity, or perfection. If this was a crowning achievement of the empire, why wasn't it repeated? Why did no later ruler try to surpass it, as kings and emperors so often did, to prove their greatness? The questions grow sharper when you look at its condition. While other structures of similar age have crumbled into ruin, Angkor Wat remains remarkably intact. Its walls are straight, its towers still sharp against the sky. If it was built in a single burst of effort in the 12th century, then the builders not only defied the limits of manpower, but mastered techniques we can barely guess at today. Perhaps the real story of its creation is far older and far stranger. The hidden city beneath the jungle. For more than a century after Henri Mouhot's writings drew the world's gaze to Angkor Wat, exploration of the surrounding area was limited. Thick jungle pressed in on all sides, and Cambodia's long years of conflict made extended archaeological work dangerous or impossible. Researchers knew there were other temples nearby, remnants of the Khmer Empire's reach, but the land was too vast, too tangled, to fully understand. That began to change in 2012, when archaeologists Damien Evans and Roland Fletcher brought a new kind of vision to the task. They turned to LiDAR, light detection and ranging, a technology that uses lasers fired from aircraft to pierce the canopy and map the ground below. From a helicopter skimming over the jungle, millions of pulses were sent down into the green, bouncing back with the contours of hidden terrain.
The rays pass through the forest canopy and are reflected back to the LiDAR sensors, allowing researchers to chart the topography of the ground.
What the scans revealed stunned even the most seasoned scholars. Beneath the trees lay the faint lines of roads and embankments, the geometric shapes of dried ponds, the outlines of neighborhoods. Temples that had vanished under centuries of growth appeared in ghostly detail. Canals, reservoirs, and agricultural grids stretched far beyond what anyone expected. Angkor Wat, it turned out, was not an isolated marvel, but the beating heart of a metropolis. The city around it sprawled across more than 600 square miles, an expanse the size of modern Los Angeles, making it, in its time, the largest urban settlement in human history before the Industrial Revolution. Estimates suggested nearly 1 million people had once lived here, spread across a low-density landscape of rice paddies, waterways, and shrines. The sheer scale of the infrastructure spoke of careful planning and immense resources, a civilization that shaped the land as much as it built upon it. The jungle had hidden this city for centuries. Now, in the space of a few flights, its bones were visible again, and they told a story that made Angkor Wat's mystery even deeper. The hydraulic city. Long before the LiDAR scans of the 21st century, a few had guessed that water was the true key to Angkor's survival. In the 1950s and 60s, French archaeologist Bernard-Philippe Grolier used aerial photography to trace the broad outlines of canals and reservoirs around the complex. He called it the hydraulic city, a network so intricate that it seemed less like an ancient ruin and more like the blueprint of a living machine. But Grosslier could only see fragments. It wasn't until Damian Evans and Roland Fletcher mapped the entire region in detail that the full extent of the system came into view. The waterways stretched for hundreds of miles, linking rivers, lakes, and man-made reservoirs called barays. One baray was 5 miles long. Dikes and channels channeled the flow in precise directions, feeding both the city's moat and the terraced rice fields beyond. There was no crude irrigation. The system managed water from 3 separate rivers and a nearby lake, storing it during floods and releasing it during droughts. It provided transport, sanitation, and even fish-filled ponds for food. In a land where seasons swing between monsoon and searing dry heat, this was an act of survival and dominance. The scale was so vast and the controls so precise that it has no known equal in the ancient world. Angkor's lifeblood wasn't just stone or soil. It was water, guided and tamed on a monumental scale. To walk the causeways today is to step over bridges that once spanned busy canals, to pass moats that were arteries of a living city. And it leaves you wondering, if the Khmer built all this, what else did they know about shaping the world to their will?
Now first, like always, be sure to hit the like button down below. It helps us out tremendously with the reach of this video. Thank you.
The Celestial Blueprint. Even with its waterworks exposed, Angkor Wat held deeper secrets, ones carved into its very layout. For the builders had not only shaped the land, they had shaped the heavens into stone. In Hindu cosmology, the universe has a center, Mount Meru, the sacred mountain of the gods, surrounded by ranges and encircled by the cosmic sea. Angkor Wat mirrors this vision perfectly. The central lotus bud tower rises as Meru, the enclosing wall as the mountains, the wide moat as the cosmic waters from which all life begins. To enter the temple was to walk a symbolic journey toward enlightenment, crossing the sea, passing through the mountains, and ascending to the divine peak. But there is more. Stand at the main causeway on the spring equinox and watch the sun rise directly over the central tower. This alignment is not a coincidence. It is precision astronomy. One of Angkor Wat's most famous carvings, the 160-foot depiction of the churning of the ocean of milk, is more than myth. Scholars like Eleanor Manica have shown it works as a solar calendar. The 91 demons on one side mark the days from equinox to winter solstice. The 88 gods on the other mark the days to summer solstice, with the pivot at the equinox itself. The temple's measurements hide more such codes. The top level of the central tower measures 189 cubits by 176.37 cubits. Together, they equal 365.37, almost exactly the length of a solar year. The chambers beneath reflect lunar cycles, with dimensions matching the moon's passage through its 27 or 28 lunar mansions. And all of it is aligned to the 4 cardinal points with astonishing GPS-like precision. For the 12th century, such accuracy should have been impossible. To walk through Angkor Wat is to move through a map, not just of the Earth, but of the cosmos. Whoever built it understood both in ways we are only beginning to grasp. The carvings that shouldn't exist. For all its vast courtyards and towering gates, some of Angkor Wat's most unsettling secrets are small, carved into corners, lintels, and hidden panels where only the patient eye will find them. In 2021, independent researcher Praveen Mohan walked the site inch by inch, tracing every surface with his camera.
Angkor Wat temple was built about 900 years ago, and the temple was built by a Hindu king.
He expected artistry, mythology, and the familiar flourishes of Khmer stonework. He found those, but he also found things that should not be there. One carving shows the sun god Surya, radiant and unyielding, with 9 figures beneath him, the 9 planets of our solar system, including Pluto. Pluto, officially discovered in 1930, is invisible without a telescope, Neptune and Uranus, the planets before it, were also unknown until centuries after Angkor Wat's supposed construction. How could they be here, in stone, nearly 900 years ago? Elsewhere, a figure stands with one eye closed, the other pressed to a long cylindrical device, unmistakably like a telescope. History records its invention in 1608, almost 500 years too late for the Khmer Masons to have known it. In another panel, an elephant stands with 4 great tusks. Science tells us such animals, the prehistoric stegodon, vanished millions of years ago, though their fossils have been found in Southeast Asia. Could their likeness have been passed down from an older memory, or a direct encounter far beyond what history admits? And then, in the nearby temple of Angkor Thom, a carving that seems to show a stegosaurus, plates along its back, tail curved. To carve what you've never seen is one thing. To carve what has been gone for 65 million years is another. Are these echoes of older knowledge, traces of a deeper past that the Khmer inherited but did not create? The stones do not answer, but they invite the question. The Hidden Chamber and the Golden Tower. In 1934, French archaeologist Jean Comelle led a team into the central tower of Angkor Wat. Beneath a statue of the Buddha, a later addition by the Khmer after their conversion to Buddhism,
the landmines are cleared and archaeological work is allowed to continue at Angkor.
They found a sealed well, its mouth hidden for centuries. Removing the statue and clearing the debris, they descended. The shaft plunged more than 50 feet before striking the underground water table. Pumps were brought in, and the water was drawn away. At 70 feet, their tools struck something solid, a stone box, broken, with a strange circular cutout in its lid. Inside, resting in the hollow, was a small cache of gold leaf weighing 65 grams. There were no inscriptions, no clear purpose, and soon after, the box itself was lost, misplaced, or stolen, its trail vanishing into rumor. But the discovery would take on new meaning decades later, when historians revisited the account of Zhou Daguan, a Chinese diplomat who visited Angkor in 1296. Zhou described the central tower as being made of, or sheathed in, gold. If true, the structure would have been one of the most electrically conductive monuments in history. Some have speculated that the shaft, the box, and the golden exterior could have been part of a system, perhaps not religious at all, but technological. Theorists draw comparisons to Nikola Tesla's designs for transmitting power wirelessly, using conductive towers to project energy. It sounds impossible, but if the builders of Angkor Wat mastered the movement of water and the mapping of the cosmos, could they have also known how to capture the sun's energy, or the Earth's? The shaft beneath the central tower remains silent, its true purpose still buried in the dark. The mysterious spirals. In 2015, LiDAR scans of the Angkor Wat complex revealed something no one had ever suspected. Beneath the manicured grounds, hidden under centuries of soil, lay the faint but unmistakable outline of enormous spirals. They were not crude curves scratched into the earth, but vast geometric shapes, rectilinear spirals stretching more than 5,000 feet. Perfect in proportion, deliberate in design, and unique. Nothing like them had ever been recorded at Angkor or anywhere else. Damian Evans called them the most striking discovery associated with Angkor Wat to date. In their report, he and Roland Fletcher admitted they had never previously recognized, predicted, or supposed such a structure could exist, and they did not explain. To some, the spirals resemble the circuitry of a colossal machine, perhaps part of a system for energy storage or distribution, echoing the theories of the Golden Tower. Others see a ritual pattern, a massive symbol meant to be seen from above. Whatever their purpose, the spirals deepen the mystery. They are silent, invisible to the casual visitor, yet they might be the key to understanding the mind, or the civilization that built Angkor Wat. Who built it? When Chinese diplomat Zhou Daguan visited Angkor in 1296, he was told something curious by the locals, that the great temple complex had been built by a divine architect in a single night. It's an easy detail to dismiss as legend, but consider this. Zhou's visit took place less than 150 years after Angkor Wat was supposedly built. If the Khmer Empire had truly constructed it, an achievement unmatched anywhere in their realm, why wouldn't they claim the credit? Why pass the glory to myth? Perhaps because they couldn't. Perhaps the Khmer had inherited the site from someone or something older. A civilization whose name and records were lost, but whose knowledge of astronomy, engineering, hydraulics, and perhaps even energy far exceeded what we expect from the 12th century. In that scenario, the Khmer could have adapted and maintained the structure, even altered its religious purpose, but the original builders were long gone. And if that's true, then Angkor Wat is more than a wonder of Khmer architecture. It's a remnant of a forgotten world. Who were they? Where did they go? And how much of their knowledge is still hidden in the stones, the carvings, the patterns beneath the ground? Angkor Wat stands as both a masterpiece and a question. Even within the official history, it is the largest religious monument on Earth, the heart of a city that once rivaled any in scale and sophistication. But its stones whisper of deeper mysteries, impossible timelines, lost technologies, and knowledge that should not have existed. The jungle has hidden its secrets before, and it may yet hide more. Somewhere under the roots and soil, in the shadows of its towers, answers still wait. Until then, Angkor Wat remains what it has always been, a place where wonder and uncertainty meet.